All right, I think I got this live thing figured out. Make sure the live is on Instagram. All right. Welcome everybody to Ignite Thursday, where I like to provide you guys tools and techniques every Thursday night to hopefully change and ignite change into your life. And so that's why I do these Ignite Thursdays, to change your mindset. Something I've been doing over a lifetime and something I've actually been reflecting on a lot lately. And something I wanted to kind of dive in. I know today the theme is to talk about optimizing the mindset, which is something I want to get into. I want to share a couple particular techniques that I use that have really helped me optimize the mindset. But before I get into that, right, why did this whole thing start? I do go over some brief stuff, but I'm going to change it up a little bit today. Reason being is change is good, right? I think we need to get used to change. Change is always good. I think we expect it at some point in our lives, and we should always expect it because it is going to happen. Nonetheless, so I started reflecting on when the first time I started really having igniting change into my life. And I always talk about, you're not supposed to be in the past or the future, but the past connects where you are today. And so I started really reflecting on that in some of my sessions that I've had today, which is one of the optimizing things I'm going to talk about later today in this video or in this live, which will turn into a video later. So that's why I'm saying video for later. But nonetheless, in my past, I started looking back, and I think, you know how you have those moments in time where it's like time stops and you can almost relive that moment when you get older, right? And when I talk about the past, this is what I'm talking about, reflecting on those times, kind of seeing how it all kind of intertwines and brings you to the current moment. And so I started thinking about the first time I really had this this mindset shift, this ignition, right? And I started thinking back. It was like this moment, and this is really odd, right? It was like this moment in my life when I want to say it was like 9 or 10. And I remember we had just got like a team sport, right? Essentially in my school, in my elementary school, they started football, flag football at that. And I remember during this time, you got to remember during this time, I was a heavy kid. I was picked on all the time. I wasn't just a heavy-set kid. I was also, I had special education classes as well at this time, right? Because they thought I was lacking. And I think for me, it was just more of a distraction, right? I don't think my mind was busy enough on some of the things I was doing back then. But nonetheless, so I felt like the underdog anyway. And so in starting football, I loved football, right? Back then, nowadays, it's more baseball, but that's a different story. But back then, football was my jam. And so flag football was for me. I was excited about it. I'm glad I was able to actually have some kind of sport to actually be playing. And so I recall there was 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of us. We all signed up for football. And so I remember during when we had recess that we were going to okay, now we're going to go out and practice. Let's get these 5 or 6 guys together and we're going to start practicing. And so I remember going out there, and of course, the most popular kid in school, the reason why he's typically popular at elementary age is because of some reason, he's fast, right? So the quarterback obviously was the popular kid, the fast kid. And I remember saying to myself, right, it was just so frustrating to me and how he could run so much faster than everybody. And I kept saying to myself, why can't I run as fast as him? And, leading up to this, we used to play all kinds of other games and, those chase games, whatever they were back then. But nonetheless, in football here, he was playing the quarterback, and I love to play linebacker. So I was lining up against him, and, you had that 10 Mississippi rule and whatever the case was, but he was fast. So if nobody was open, which typically most of the time nobody was not, and he liked to run, so he ran. And again, it was frustrating to me because I couldn't keep up with him. So that being said, what I found out is that, excuse the train, it likes to interrupt sometimes here and there, so don't worry about that. Nonetheless, so I was again frustrated. about what was going on. So what I ended up actually doing was, I remember every time I would run, right? And this is like anybody can relate to this particular situation. Cue the train, yeah, because this is the point. But with that being said, right, the next thing was I was getting frustrated. Everybody can live in this point where you are frustrated. You want to make a change. And in seeing that, right, and getting frustrated that I couldn't run as fast as this kid, and point being is that, every time I got tired, every time I was fatigued, I wouldn't push myself out of my comfort zone. And this is why I talk about the comfort zone stuff so much, because you have to push outside. And I'm a very much physical person, and I think it relates to this particular moment in my life, is because up to this point, whenever I was tired or fatigued, I wouldn't push myself beyond my comfort zone. And so at this point, I was so frustrated that I couldn't catch the fast kid that I was going to do whatever it took. On this next snap, I was going to do whatever it took to catch him, because I knew he was going to run. And so as usual, right, he snapped the ball, he went back, 10 Mississippi, I started charging after him, because obviously I was a linebacker, I was the coolest linebacker ever. And so I started charging after him, right, and he took off. And I remember I was at this point, I remember feeling tired and realizing my spatial awareness and stuff was getting really good at this point as well too. And so in realizing that if I just push past it, I can get him, right? And that's all I kept saying to myself, just keep pushing as hard as I can to get to him. And then I realized that I started catching up to him, and to the point to where I was running just as fast, if not faster than him, and I caught him. And I tagged him. I two-hand touched him. Yeah, we didn't have the flags then because it was only practice, but I tagged him. And then that just clicked in my mind like, man, all I got to do is push myself a little bit outside of that comfort zone, outside of that fatigue and everything else, and I can get him. And as soon as that clicked on the next play, I did the same thing. And I kept doing this over and over and over, and realizing that at this point, hey, what's going on? Jezin? Is that how you say it? I'm bad at names, so my apologies. But so I ended up catching him. And so I kept doing this on every single play, right? And so in saying that, I realized at that point that I could make a change, right? And so I think relating that back to the point that I am today about igniting change, and I've done different times where I've pushed past that zone, but it has been in a time frame in which I was only going to do it when I felt necessary. But I have done it many times throughout my life. I've done it through cutting cardboard, right? And I changed and went in the military. And then from that point on, what I ended up actually doing was going and making other changes, right? I went back to college and I got my degree. And physical changes, right? Like before, I was the big kid, right? I made that change into having a six-pack, wanting to be a professional bodybuilder, right? I've made the changes in my life. I have the track record that shows me that I've ignited my way to the point I am today. And it's just until recently that I started optimizing this more and refining this more. And this kind of brings us all into the underdog experiment and everything. And realizing that, I was seeing the frustration of other people throughout my life. I've made the changes and igniting that change, and I'm seeing the people struggle with this stuff and trying to get them past that, right? Trying to get them to ignite the same change that I've had in my own life. And so in doing that, I started looking for ways to optimize this. When I started doing the underdog experiment, I've been optimizing it over the past couple of years, but the underdog experiment helped me refine and be like, okay, wait, where was I when I started refining this? And it brought me back to a lot of low points, one of the lowest points in my life where I started really refining it and working on these things to help my mindset, because I knew I was capable of igniting my mindset to do those things because I had the track record of doing it. And so in saying that, how do you optimize the mindset, right? And I found some tools. I found a lot of different tools that have really helped, but the two particular that I'm talking about today have really helped me and have really shifted and helped me with my focus, helped me with my confidence, helped me with stress levels, helped me with all different kinds of aspects of my life. And I was actually watching an interview today about, when you're trying to optimize yourself, right? I think you don't have to be at a low point in your life. You can be optimizing yourself at any point in your life. And that's the beauty of the mindset and optimizing it and getting perspective, because at any point in your life, you can use a little bit more perspective. You can always optimize your perspective. You can always get that shift, right? Because I think a lot of times we focus on being so one-dimensional that it takes away from the fact that if you aren't multidimensional and have multiple perspectives, that it can be extremely hard, right? And a lot of times we go at a problem being one-dimensional when realizing that there's other different perspectives you can be approaching that problem with. And that can help you solve that problem much easier. So with that being said, right, I think going into this whole thing, going into the underdog experiment and having the pillars and then trying to figure out, okay, well, I need to start with a mindset. And then once I started building out, over the past couple of weeks, I've been building out the ignition part, right? Trying to find what motivates you, trying to figure out all these other different things and what has motivated me throughout the years and allowed me to make dramatic changes, right? And getting over that uncertainty and all these other different things, right? And so being said, optimizing. So I've come to this point, and the thing is a lot of the tools I provide, they aren't instant fixes. Nothing is an instant fix, right? But you can notice a difference after several days of doing these things. And I have touched on these things. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos, I do touch on these things. Even on Instagram here, I do talk about these things periodically. But ultimately, you have to realize that these aren't overnight fixes. You have to realize that anybody can use these tools. And I highly suggest that no matter what part you are in your life, that you incorporate these tools and make it a daily ritual, because they make a traumatic difference. And again, after the first couple sessions of doing these things, you're going to realize that it's not easy, because you are having to rewire essentially the environment that we've evolved into, right? We've evolved into this environment that has conditioned us to rely on technology, to rely on all these other different things. So you have to break away from that. And it's like pulling a grilled cheese apart, right? It's just like that. It's hard to pull it apart, right? You got to pull that apart and then start rewiring it. So that being said, I want to actually get into the first one I have today, and that is actually box breathing. Now, some of you guys might have been aware or know of box breathing. And for those who don't know, I got this little trusty Post-it note here. It's not to do anything but to show you that it is a box, right? And the concept of this, I'm just trying to give you a visual to kind of, because when I say visualize this stuff, a lot of people may have trouble actually trying to visualize this stuff. So this is going to help with the visualization, if I could talk. So box breathing typically is when you're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, then hold for 4, and then repeat the cycle. This is why it's called box breathing. So I can show you what that looks like. So essentially, you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, inhale for 4. So it's essentially that, just repeating that. And if you can do that for like 5 or 6 times, this is what's fantastic about this thing. Especially when I go into this next tool that I'm getting into, this helps ground you. And it's important to be grounded, because a lot of times when you go into anything, you realize that you have a lot of the daily thoughts going through your head, and you need to ground yourself. You need to get to a point to where you try to eliminate or dilute a lot of the daily thoughts. And that's what essentially you're trying to do, is dilute the daily thoughts, so then you can start reprogramming yourself. And this helps with that stuff. And it helps, again, with the stress levels. It helps with the anxiety, depression, whatever you're going through. And you have to realize that when you're doing this, there has been scientific evidence to show, there's more out coming now about breathing techniques and how it actually helps you improve your stress levels and everything. And this is being one of them. And this is what truly helps. Now, you don't have to do the 4x4x4. This is just something that is typically taught. The way I have actually learned it is through, I learned it through special forces. Not that I was in special forces, I was in the military, but I was not special forces, but I've learned it through a Navy SEAL. And I essentially learned it from him, and I continue to utilize it to help me ground myself and allow me to really, again, dilute all the daily stresses and have a good starting point. Because whenever you're trying to rewire yourself, you want to clean the slate and you want to start from a good baseline. And this is a good way to start it, and which will lead into the next tool that I'm going to talk about. And so, again, box breathing, one of the best things you can do, especially if you are stressed out. You can do box breathing, a quicker way to help you as well. I mean, there's tons of breathing techniques out there. There's a quick one to just relieve stress. And that's 2 quick breaths in through the nose, and then 1 quick breath out your mouth. Right? This helps with relieving stress. Again, there's multiple different ways to do different breathing techniques. Again, box breathing is better for the technique I'm going into. At least that's what I feel has helped me a lot. Again, I don't do the 4x4x4. I do more like a 6 to 7 inhale with a 4 pause, and then a 6 to 7 exhale with a 4 pause again at the bottom, and then essentially create that box, right? You're trying to recreate the box technique, right? That's what you're trying to do. And so that is definitely helped me. Again, it helps put you in the now as well, right? So it not only reduces all these different levels, tries to dilute the stress levels, but it puts you in the now. And I talk about the now and how important that is to be in the now, because now is where change takes place. If you're living in the past or living in the future, or projecting that if I get to this point in my life, right, that I will be better then. Well, you can correct everything in the now. And this helps with that, is realizing, focusing on the now, because you are focusing on the breath. You have to focus on the now to focus on your breath. So this is what helps. This is essentially what makes this so effective, because it helps you concentrate and focus on the now. And again, the more you do this, you have to understand all these things that I teach, right? There are physical fitness trainers. There has to be mind trainers, right? And the more science that's backing these different techniques and stuff for the mind, people are starting to realize the difference that it makes in their life. And it's made a tremendous difference in myself, right? Like I feel distinctly different because of the work that I've put in, right? I'm not stressed out all the time. I could come at problems with a better even keel. And it is because of a lot of the different techniques and tools that I teach, especially this being one of them, and being grounded, right? And diluting, again, your daily stresses, because depending on your environment, again, a couple of years back when I really started doing this and focusing on this, I was at a very low point in my life. Again, you don't have to be at a low point to start doing these things to see how effective these things are. You should, at any point in your life, the top of your life and everything is hunky-dory, or the bottom, right? This is for anything. This will help you, again, dilute that and make sure that you are going everything at a good baseline. So, breathing technique, that's the first technique I have for you guys. Again, there's plenty other different ones. I know Wim Hof is another big one. His is more deep inhales, quick inhales. There's tons of them out there. This particular one is what's helped me, and I use it just for the 5 to 6 of these deep breaths. That's the way I was taught, and so it's just trying to get you to a quick baseline before you go into this next tool that I will be explaining, which the next tool is stillness. And some people, as soon as you hear that, you're probably going to go running for the hills, but believe me, again, the first tool was hard for me to grasp and concept and rewire. This next tool is the same way. I had to put in effort to be able to do this. Now, stillness isn't something I learned right off the gate. I started doing meditation, and it kind of formed into stillness and just sitting by myself, right? And being in the silence. And a lot of times that sounds like a waste of time to a lot of people. And believe me, from when I started, it sounded like a complete waste of time, but I knew I needed the work. I knew I needed to optimize my mindset to find that ignition to start making change again. And so in doing so, doing this helps optimize your mindset. And so in saying that, stillness, how do you go into it? Well, the first thing is you're going to start with that box breathing. You have 5 to 6, then you're going to move in to this the stillness session, right? And what I've said before, I said this on my podcast, episode 2, the art of thought, right? This is one of the things I was talking about in that episode, was the fact that you have to be an independent thinker. And going into these sessions allows you to become an independent thinker, allows you to become a critical thinker. And you wouldn't think that because it is a stillness session, but you have to realize that you have a lot of answers in there. You just haven't given yourself the time to essentially conjure those thoughts and those ideas from within. And it is possible. Now, I'm one of those people that didn't believe in all this stuff before. Believe me, I was a realist before. I talk about that all the time, right? I was very much a realist. But now, seeing the power of these things, these tools, there is true power in these things. There is true power in the change that it brings into your life. And understanding that it's still in the sessions, they will help you become a better thinker. They will help you become a much calmer person, so that anxiety, depression, all these things that are being conjured up and everything inside you can relieve yourself by doing these stillness sessions. And so essentially what I would do is I do the box breathing, and then I go directly into my stillness section. And sometimes you can come into it with a thought, a particular question you may have, or just enjoy the silence. And believe me, you get to a point to where you enjoy the silence. The silence is great because you realize after the first about 10 minutes, right? It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. Even for myself, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and the stillness is comforting. It's calming. It makes you feel at peace. But not only that, but you have to realize that that first 10 minutes, even after doing this for so long, you still have daily thoughts, right? You got to let the daily thoughts, you got to let all the daily garbage get out of your head and allow new thoughts and new ideas to propagate, right? And so to do that, you have to essentially lay the soil, right? This is what I will call laying the soil, right? So you got to let all the nasty, you got to clean and fertilize the soil, right? You got to lay everything out perfectly nice. In that first 10 minutes, that's essentially what you're doing. You're pulling out all the weeds and all that junk of the day, right? That's essentially what you're doing in the first 10 minutes. And then after about that, then you start hitting some stillness. But when you're going through this whole thing, this whole process of stillness, you want to be an observer of your thoughts. Now, this takes some time. I know you've always heard that voice, those thoughts and ideas in your head, right? Now you need to kind of pull yourself back and look at it from a third-person perspective and look at these thoughts and these ideas as a third person, right? And see what they are, and not giving it really any thought, right? Especially when it starts coming in a lot of the daily things. In that first 10 minutes, you would just want to kind of see them, acknowledge them. Hey, I realize that this thought is, this is the problem I've had throughout the day, the stresses, whatever. Kind of just let it go. And then all these thoughts and ideas, sometimes you find you will stray off a little bit, especially in the beginning. I do still stray off sometimes, so I have to correct myself and say, okay, that's a great thought, whatever, let it go. Right now I'm in my stillness session. So at that point, from the stillness session, you're going to come to a point where the thoughts and ideas, they aren't so chaotic. And this may take some time, because I know it took me some time, and it may take 15, 20 minutes to get a lot of those daily thoughts and ideas out, right? Once you start conditioning and rewiring your mind to do these things, and allow yourself to not sit there and dwell on those thoughts and those ideas, the quicker this will come, right? Because sometimes I can knock it out and then those daily thoughts are done within the first 5 minutes. Sometimes it does take a little bit more than 10 minutes. But as long as you're putting forth effort, continued effort every day, you will get better and better. You will condition your mind. You will start rewiring your mind to be able to make change, ignite change in your life. And so the stillness session, after that, again, that first 10 minutes, you start having just random thoughts, right? This is kind of like what I call like the think tank. This is where you start getting to the good stuff. You start having some random ideas. And the thing to the matter is, I normally, for my sessions as of late, again, these sessions evolve as I learn new things and apply new things in my life. But currently right now I'm doing 30 sessions. You can start out about 30 minutes or about 20 minutes, right? You want to try to build up to that. It took me time to build up to that. I've gone 2 hours, and the longer you can do this, I'm telling you, the better it gets. It gets really good, especially if you can make past like 40 minutes. You start really hitting some amazing thoughts and ideas. And again, for myself, I'm just doing 30 minutes now, just because I've got a hectic schedule, and I like to, again, block my time. This goes into time management and all that stuff. We're not getting into that today. But nonetheless, I like to integrate a lot of different things, but I'll finish that at the end. Let me finish this stillness section. So the stillness section, so after that about 20-minute mark is when it starts really getting good. You start really getting some good thoughts and ideas. And at this point, when I felt like I've reached that 20-minute mark, which when you do this long enough, you realize that you can kind of feel when it's that 20-minute mark. You feel how long you're in, and you lose sense of time. You do this enough, you start losing sense of time, but you kind of still know where you're at. So you're almost kind of like, this is one thing you want to be alert going into this, right? You want to be aware of these things. This is why the breathing and stuff puts you in the now. So you want to, again, make sure you're an observer of your thoughts, because if you start, you want to be sitting upright, sitting straight in your seats. You want to have your hands in your lap, right? Sitting on your thighs. You want your feet flat on the floor, right? You don't want to be comfortable because you don't want to fall asleep during the session. And doing that, it's not going to help you, right? And so you go to this 20-minute mark, and you find that at this point, you still really start getting creative, and these thoughts and ideas start really coming up. And believe me, you start coming up with some really amazing things. And if you came into this session with a question, you realize you start coming up with an answer at this point. Or perhaps you're just looking for clarity in your life. This provides great clarity. And I talk about, before even going into this session, this is why I talk about perspective a lot. If you are trying to seek perspective and find flow and all these things, you're subconsciously reprogramming your brain. And so this is where it becomes extremely important at this point. So these thoughts and ideas that you've been learning, these perspectives that you've been learning, they start, again, conjugating, coming back up, right? They start showing their hand at this point. And so this is where it becomes really good. And so maybe you had a problem coming into the session. You start looking at the thing, well, I learned about this thing today, and then it kind of just bleeds in everything, and you start solving your problems. Or you start becoming more comfortable, and you realize that it's not that big of a deal, right? This is what's nice about this whole thing, is that it starts helping you realize that it is, again, not that big of a deal. That you have the power in yourself to be able to figure these things out, right? That's why I like teaching this stuff and about the mindset and stuff, because the power is within you to ignite change into your life. Don't fall victim to social conditioning. You can make the change yourself, right? If you're wired with normal wiring, like a good majority of us, right? You can make this change by yourself. You can. And so with that being said, this is essentially my session. And then coming out of it, I feel rejuvenated, right? It gives you newfound energy. And again, this is why I love these sessions, because you not only answer questions, you not only get creative, you not only have an answer to your question, but you feel rejuvenated. You feel energized without having to do much but sit there in stillness. And this takes time, because in the beginning you sit there. I remember when I first started doing any kind of meditation or anything, that first 2 minutes was it's like pulling teeth. It was extremely hard. I was like, how am I supposed to sit here for 20 minutes? You have to train your mind to be able to do this, right? It's going to the gym. This is your mental gym. You have to go to your mental gym every day to build your mindset to where it needs to be, to ignite the change that you want to see. And to realize that it is possible. It is very much possible, because I've done it, and I've had multiple changes in my life. And again, over the past couple of years, I've really been refining this. and figuring out how I've been doing it so much over the years. And so with that being said, I want to, I guess, talk. That's essentially the two tools I wanted to go over today. I didn't want to make this too long, but, and I forgot the other thing I was going to hit on. If I could rewind this thing, that would be fantastic. But just be aware, right? This is the whole reason why I started Discover Ignite. And because I was tired of seeing other people struggle. And I knew I've ignited change. Or over the years, I've refined that and how I've done it, and reverse engineering this stuff and sharing these tools with you, and to help you realize I was in your shoes. I have been in your shoes, right? I've fallen off, right? I've fallen off and had to get back on a couple different times, but I've done it. I know what it takes. These tools, they will help you. They make it easier. These particular tools that I shared in this video, they get you there faster. They allow the thought process, the perspectives and everything. They give you answers faster. You have to build up your strength. You have to build up your mental strength to be able to do these things. But it is possible. And then once you get there, you maintain, the maintenance is a lot easier. Just like weightlifting, right? I relate everything back to that because it's physical, because I am a physical person. And again, refining over the past couple of years on how to optimize the brain and be able to do these things. And so I think that was the other thing I was going to talk about. I seek perspective because, again, I'm not trying to be one-dimensional. And I talked about this last week with Leonardo da Vinci. He was not one-dimensional, right? He had multiple perspectives. And the reason why that is important is to realize that if you gain perspective, if you use these tools to your advantage and realize the power of these tools, again, coming from a realist, you realize that this Ignite mindset, you can change anything you want in your life. And I try to do that by being the model for other people to follow. I do it not just for my children, I do it for other people. I want to see other people stop the struggle. Stop buying into temporary fixes and then seeking for the next temporary fix. Fix the root of the problem. And I've actually come up with some new techniques that I want to share eventually down the road, but that's something I'm developing. I'm in the process of doing right now. So I can share with you guys that I think is different and unique, that I haven't seen, that I think can dramatically change the way things are because of the perspective that I get. The perspective that I get from neuroscience, the perspective I get from meditation, from breathing techniques, from a bunch of other different avenues that you don't think are related, from psychology, right? From a bunch of different avenues that matter. If you can gain perspective instead of being so one-dimensional, you realize that life can be attacked much easier, can make the change you want so much easier. This is what excites me because, connecting the dots in my own life and seeing the changes that I've made and seeing how I've done it, right? The epiphany that I've had in refining over the past couple of years and optimizing the mindset and giving myself even more perspective than I've had. I'm seeing what it takes. I'm sharing what it takes. And again, there's no overnight, right? But I am the mind strategist. I'm the one that's trying to teach you to be control of the mind, igniting the change that you want to see, whatever that change is in your life, and allowing you and pointing you to where you need to focus. So with that being said, I got the train. I can hear the train. I don't know if you guys can, but before I get bombed out here again, I think that's pretty much all I had for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am live here on Instagram. I used to be on YouTube, but now it is on Instagram. We'll actually move this video not only to Instagram, but to YouTube, so you can follow it up there too. Also, if you want to follow me on all of the social platforms, I have those in my bio, so check those out. So until next time, guys, I will see you guys later.